We have a lot of news to get into that happened throughout this week in the wild, wacky world of gaming, including a YouTuber spreading misinformation about an upcoming video game, more Ubisoft drama, a Death Stranding update, and a lot more to touch on. But I'm not going to waste that much more time. Let's go ahead and get into it. Earlier this week, there was a rumor that was spread by YouTuber Endymion, who made a series of videos covering some information he got directly, not only from Ubisoft developers themselves, but also allegedly some insiders that work at Sony, specifically when it concerns the upcoming game Ghost of Yote. Some of the rumors that Endymion tried to run with was one that was mentioned by Paul Tassi of Forbes. It hinted at the possibility of Ubisoft removing Yasuke completely, along with some alleged Ubisoft developers supposedly reaching out to him specifically to tell him what's going on with the upcoming Assassin's Creed Shadows, and even mentioning that at one point in time, Assassin's Creed Shadows was supposed to be a completely different game. Later on, insider Tom Henderson debunked this whole thing with a headline that reads, "Context around the Assassin's Creed Shadows delay." It is mentioned that part of the delay is due to them learning from the Star Wars Outlaws release, which Tom Henderson says both claims are true, but beyond a few short words, internally the developers been pushed for a delay for the best part of a few months, which had fallen on deaf ears until the release of Outlaws. Tom Henderson did also point out that Star Wars Outlaws just barely passed 1 million units sold, which apparently has caused some alarm bells to ring at Ubisoft HQ, which not only led to the approval of Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed to Q1 2025, but to finally putting games back on Steam, which is a request that every Ubisoft team has been pushing for years. In short, the cause for this delay, it boils down to a strict development timeline, polishing and addressing Japanese community's cultural and historical accuracy concerns. With him getting into the wild rumors about Yasuke, he's not going to be removed. However, sources have said that the team has been actively addressing many of the historical and cultural concerns, which started before the game's reveal following external playtests and were accelerated further following the game's initial reveal and mass feedback. This includes changing some of Yasuke's story and how he's portrayed in the game, fixing architectural details, and ensuring that the game is historically grounded while fitting into the Assassin's Creed universe. Fundamentally, though, these are issues that should have been caught internally before the game's reveal, especially given Ubisoft's strict asset approval process. As for now, these issues fell through the cracks. I'm told that historical experts were brought onto the project much later than usual for a project of this magnitude, and that miscommunication between teams and cutting corners when it came to the approval process of assets to meet deadlines were also at play. As for the game's polish and issue with bugs, it's pretty self-explanatory. The game is currently not at the stage it needs to be for release, and I'm told that there have been some tweaks to some gameplay mechanics and elements that are going to take time to incorporate. While some of those issues were highlighted in recent playtests and mock reviews, these are end of development issues that will take a little longer. And at least 7 developers working on the project said that they have been pushing for a delay for some time, and their situation had even been heard at other studios in the company. Ultimately, though, the delay comes down to a strict development timeline and the need to address issues caused by the set timeline. As why Ubisoft HQ continues to ignore the developers on almost every level, Ubisoft's executive committee and board of directors will decide in their review, which I reported on last week, I believe. Although 80% of 40 Ubisoft developers think this ends no change or layoffs, but that's another story on the internal issues for another time. For now though, Ubisoft Quebec will release Assassin's Creed Shadows on February 14th, 2025. While the game isn't matching Valhalla in pre-order numbers, which launched on past generation consoles to a wider market, the numbers are solid and are likely to rise further given its Steam release announcement. Which Tom Henderson did take to Twitter to reply to some people about this whole situation, one of which he was asked about Project Hex, which he said has always been 2026. I think Invictus is late 2025, unless that changes. The aim is mainline every 2 years with a smaller experience in year 2. He also did point out a few more tidbits. Never say never when it comes to delays, but the new date, I'm told, is adequate time. Delay will affect the AC pipeline, but it's unclear what that looks like for the moment. Invictus, Assassin's Creed Multiplayer, Obsidian, Black Flag Remake, and Hex/Neo are all still in development. While games can always be canceled for a variety of different reasons, Ubisoft is bullish on all these projects. Everyone internally is happy that games are finally going back to Steam, a move that developers have pushed for years. As far as Endymion is concerned, I really don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth when it comes to these sources. And it kind of seems like a weird pivot in a way, like you're going from making these videos about anti-woke content to all of a sudden saying, hey guys, I want to be this YouTuber who reports on stories I hear through the grapevine from developers across the industry now. When you build a whole platform based around anti-woke content, it kind of makes your sources and your reporting on the information hard to believe, considering your track record. Because keep in mind, we just got out of a situation, like a few weeks ago or so, where somebody was going around trying to say that Grand Theft Auto 6 got delayed, and the person was literally on Twitter saying, hey guys, why would I lie about this? And it turned out to not be true, because Jason Schreier came back and said, hey, that's not true at all. And honestly, I think the only reason why Endymion even made the videos he made is because his sources gave him information which fed into his anti-woke narrative. Had that source said something completely different, now granted, I understand he said take this with a grain of salt, all the buzzwords that you use when you do report on a rumor, as you should, but at the same time, it only fit your narrative. If these rumors were something totally different that went against your own narrative, you would not have even, one, made the videos, or two, people would just brush them off that's in your community, because it would be something that goes against their own narrative. Now people could say, well, Yves Guillemot kind of denied it. Look, I don't trust the word that comes out of a CEO's mouth. I'd rather take the word of a journalist. That's just me. But this started like some type of intense debate on Twitter where, should we believe him? Did he make this up? Is it a lie? This had it came from anybody else that was reporting on news stories around the industry in a similar way that other YouTubers do, and they aren't on either side of the spectrum of woke or anti-woke, then I would take these rumors with a little bit more seriousness. But because it's not, and Endymion doesn't have a track record of being right, and albeit given the type of content he produces, I'm very skeptical, to say the least. And people have been trying to say, well, why do we choose to believe journalists like Tom Henderson over him? Well, that's comparing a apple to one crazy looking orange. Tom Henderson is somebody who built his career off of reporting off of stuff inside of the gaming industry and getting his information from accurate sources that probably trumps in comparison to Endymion sources. Keep in mind, somebody like Tom Henderson and even Jason Schreier has access to people that Endymion probably wish he could speak to. And besides, I would rather take the words of a journalist than some random YouTuber. Unless if for whatever reason that YouTuber has an accurate track record, and this isn't just when it comes to people that are in the anti-woke space pushing out rumors, this is just in general. Like if somebody says that, oh, they're coming back with Midnight Club, there has to be some type of corroboration from somebody in the industry for that rumor to have a little bit more believability. But because there isn't any with Endymion and it's been shot down by Tom Henderson, then I'm going with Tom Henderson. That's just the facts. And of course, we do all understand why Endymion can't reveal his sources, because if they do work for Ubisoft, then of course they could lose their jobs by like any journalist. But I'm just looking at the track record, and Tom Henderson has a much more believable track record than Endymion. His track record consists of anti-woke garbage content. Moving on to the next story, Sony caught a little bit of flack for this corporate report 2024, where specifically the one part that got everybody talking is the areas of focus and sustainability, DE&I accessibility, environment, responsible supply chains, where the bullet points read: cultivating a corporate structure that emphasizes DE&I, ensuring broad accessibility functions of hardware controllers and game titles with development of dedicated peripherals, improving energy efficiency across hardware and network services, continuing to reduce plastic use in packaging, addressing environmental and human rights risk in the context of global supply chains. Only problem with that, it was just one vague statement. It didn't really go into saying, hey, we're pushing DEI. It just says, hey, we're going to be focusing more of it. And me personally, I don't see what the big issue about DEI is when that has been a corporate practice for years and years among corporate America. But if you ask the anti-woke pundits, they will tell you that this means they're going to try to force certain games to have a higher focus on women and people of color, of different nationalities and backgrounds. And they all assume that these games are going to be total and utter dog shit, and we ain't even seen nothing. They have this knee-jerk reaction when they hear it, and they think every game that Sony's gonna put out is gonna be trash. Even though I would just advise y'all, just wait, okay? Just wait until you see a trailer, some gameplay, and then make up your own minds. But to me, my whole issue with this whole DEI thing, I can't imagine me not buying and playing a game over some diversity, equity, and inclusion politics. You mean to tell me I shouldn't buy a game based off of that? But if I'm looking at a game based on the surface level stuff, like it looks like it's gonna be a fun game, looks like it's gonna be pretty good, I should just skip out on it? That don't make any sense. Oh, well, it goes against my own personal beliefs and politics, so therefore I can't support this game even though the game looks fucking amazing. Yeah, alright. I would just like to point out something that's already being considered DEI games from Sony, like God of War Ragnarok and even Spider-Man 2. Both of them games sold really well and are renowned to be great games. Now, granted, does Spider-Man 2 have some issues? Yes. But the only things that the anti-woke crowd will complain about is Thor being a fat guy, even though he damn near took Kratos to Suplex City in the first act of the game, mind you, and Angrboda being black. And they're like, oh, why isn't she white? Just like the mythos depicted her as. She don't have to be. It's not that deep. It's not that important. And then when they try to point out Spider-Man 2 with certain things like optional side missions that involve you playing as Miles Morales' love interest who is deaf, and another involving helping out a gay character try to plan a prom date. It's a side mission. It means you don't have to do it. And then also these same people will try to point out the dialogue that MJ used when she was being possessed by the Scream symbiote, screaming down Peter's neck, no pun intended, when it comes to saying, hey, I got to take up on the mortgage, I got to take up all the bills, and you're supposed to be the man of the house, this, that, and the third. I don't know if people know how symbiotes work. Symbiotes typically make them say things that they really don't mean in the heat of the moment. We literally seen this happen to Peter Parker when he was under the influence of Venom. But with those two cases specifically, they could easily be debunked when you really think about it. Next up, in more Ubisoft drama, the vice president of Rainbow Six, Cameron Lee, has left Ubisoft. It's noted that Cameron Lee joined the Rainbow Six brand in April 2022 after working as vice president of production at Activision, but it previously had over 20 years of experience as a producer, manager, and vice president at companies including EA, Bungie, and BioWare, and has worked on such franchises as Tony Hawk, Call of Duty, and Dragon Age. Following the announcement to join the Rainbow Six franchise, Ubisoft said that Lee will be responsible for creating the long-term brand strategy for the Rainbow Six franchise and aligning and collaborating with all internal partners. Now, according to Insider Gaming, it's unclear what made Lee decide to up and leave, but it was noted that, quote, for the time being, the role of VP and executive producer for the Rainbow Six brand will not be replaced. And honestly, I think this is one of the things that just adds on to the drama spectacle that's ongoing with Ubisoft right now. Like, it's nothing but bad news going on with the company. Like, it really comes to show that Assassin's Creed Shadows has a lot riding on that game to be a hit for Ubisoft, or else it could be the death of the company for all we know. We did get a brand new update on Death Stranding 2, and that is still planned to come out sometime next year. Now, there was a bit of a mistranslation from the source information saying that Kojima appears to be referring to the Japanese voice work for the game and that Insider Gaming did issue out an apology for the error, when at first they said that the game is only 30-40% completed, but I guess that's referring to the Japanese voice acting being only 30 to 40% done. And this all took place during an appearance at the Tokyo Game Show, which Kojima talked about the franchise, including where things stand with the upcoming sequel. He told the gathered crowd that the game isn't halfway done, but didn't show much concern about it. I haven't said the release date today, but the release date has already been decided, and I'm currently working on it in preparation for that. He added that while the date will be announced next year, unforeseen circumstances prevent them from revealing it sooner. Death Stranding 2 is one of them games that I am looking forward to, even though I didn't beat the first game, mostly because I just felt like the moment-to-moment gameplay was a little bit of a slog, but the storytelling for that game, graphically, technically speaking, and even the combat, when there was actual combat to be found in the game, it was quite enjoyable for the most part. And hopefully, based off from what we've seen with Death Stranding 2 so far, that it turns out to be a little bit more combat focused, and instead of like an over reliance on package delivery. Now, with that being said, y'all let me know what you think about all these stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, remember to hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.